Hey, what's up everyone? How are we all doing? Back with another video.
Hi guys.
We've took a while to get around to this really, haven't we?
I know, but obviously we've had other stuff that we've been like,
Yeah.
oh, let's do that.
Yeah, we haven't just not been uploaded, apart from yesterday. Oh, we didn't upload yesterday?
That was my fault.
Yeah, it was. What's your fault?
I went out.
Yeah, she just left and went. Yeah, World War II, Oversimplified. You've obviously never watched this, have you?
I've never watched this, but I am excited because I like to think that I actually know some things about World War II.
Yeah, well, we spent about 4 years on it in school. So.
Well, that's what I mean. So if I'm learning like new, don't get me wrong, I probably will learn some new things. But
Yeah.
I feel like if I never heard of any of it, I obviously didn't pay attention in school.
Well, we'll find out if you paid attention or not. Let's get into it.
This video was made possible by Skillshare. Churchill was a man with many talents. He was an artist, a butterfly enthusiast, and he had an unpublished manuscript about aliens. Clearly, he was a man with an insatiable thirst for knowledge. Maybe he could have loaded up his computer and logged onto Skillshare, an online learning community with more than 19,000 classes in design, business, technology, and more. Perhaps he was considering a side career in fashion, but did simplify.
Yeah, go check out Skillshare.
Viewers, the first 1,000 people to use this link, which can be found in the description, will get their first 2 months of Skillshare for just 99 cents. Be sure to try it out using the link in the description and learn something new today. Now, without further ado. It's 1902. A young man by the name of Benito Mussolini moves from Italy to Switzerland to avoid military service. He gets big into socialism, working for trade unions, writing for socialist newspapers, advocating a violent overthrow of European monarchies, the whole shebang. This gets him in a bit of trouble with the Swiss police, so he gets arrested, sent back to Italy, set free, returns to Switzerland, is arrested again, goes back to Italy again, completes his military service after previously avoiding it, and then after a brief stint as an elementary school teacher, he finally returns to work as an avid socialist. His speeches and journalistic abilities made him famous among Italian socialists. He was anti-war, so when Italy colonized Libya in 1910, he rioted and got arrested. Then World War I came along, and once again he protested Italy's involvement. But then he thought, wait a minute, this war could bring about the social climate needed to overthrow European monarchies and bring about the socialist revolution everywhere. And suddenly he was pro-war. But his fellow socialists didn't like his new pro-war stance, so they kicked him out of the party. So then he said, you know what? I'm done with socialism. We need something new, not based on class divisions tearing us apart, but based on unity through nationality. We'll conquer the Mediterranean and reunite all Italian peoples just like the days of the Roman Empire. I'll call it fascismo, and it will guide the Italian nation to greatness. That's all well and good, Mr. Mussolini, but what kind of haircut am I giving you? Let's go with... bold.
Bald. Wait, hold on. Don't you think he looks like...
Bold.
Wait. Matilda's dad?
Danny DeVito.
Yeah, kinda. Anyone else getting Danny DeVito?
Nice. Head's too skinny. He didn't have an
Italy had been on the winner's side in World War I, and they hoped they were going to get a lot out of it, but in the end, they only got a little, and they felt cheated. On top of that, a bad economy and weak governments meant that the Italian people were a little unhappy. So when Mussolini came along and said that he could fix everything, his fascist movement gained a lot of support. In 1922, he went to the king and said, make me prime minister, or I'll make me prime minister. And the king said, you and what army? This army. Fair enough.
Tell you what, all fascist dictators that come into power do it via a similar route, don't they? Like,
yeah.
no one ever just gets elected in no problem.
Then he went about establishing a dictatorship with himself at its center. Europe had its first fascist dictator. Next up, Germany. Germany had been on the loser's side, and they got absolutely wrecked by the Treaty of Versailles. They lost territory, had to demilitarize the Rhineland, had to reduce their army to just 100,000 men, couldn't have an air force, had to pay the Allies a huge amount of money that it didn't have, and a new rule was established that every Englishman withheld the right to walk into the center of Berlin, pick out any German they wanted, and spank the hell out of them. I made that last one up, but it helps you understand how all of this felt to Germans. On top of that, a bad economy and weak governments meant that when a small angry man with a silly mustache came along and said that he could fix everything, the German people loved it. Hitler had been a soldier during World War I, and he was crazy patriotic, and nobody was madder than him about Germany's humiliation. He helped start a new political party, and in 1923 attempted a march on Munich with his boys. and then he got arrested. But his popularity grew and grew, and in 1933, the president made him chancellor. He believed he was Germany's great destined savior, and he went full megalomaniac, establishing a dictatorship with himself at its center. Europe had fascist dictator number 2. Hitler and Mussolini had a...
He does a great job of like pointing out the essentials, because he's just went through 15, 20 years of history there, and he just give you just the need to know bits. Obviously there's a lot more to it, like writing.
Just a quick summary, isn't it, to bring you up to date?
Yeah, like writing Mein Kampf in prison, like he hits the essentials really well, and the way he animates it is very easy to digest, isn't it? I know it's oversimplified, but
yeah. I feel like when it started, you were talking about Mussolini, I thought, oh my god, what?
I love how the Italians are only quite racist, and the Germans are extremely racist. Okay.
A lot of the same ideas, but more importantly, they had the same enemies, and they started to get along.
Oh, sorry. So what, you never knew about Mussolini and the Italians being fascists?
No, I didn't learn about that. I think I spent 2-3 years just about Hitler and the Holocaust. Fair. And that's where, that's what our World War II kind of was focused on. Didn't learn about the Italians.
Yeah, we didn't touch on the Italians that much. It's only after that it become apparent through just
Mussolini had a lot of the same ideas, but more importantly, they had the same enemies, and they started to get along. Anyone else want to be friends? Franco? No? You good? I do. Who's that? It's Japan, and they've taken over northern China. Let's rewind a bit. Japan had isolated itself from the rest of the world for over 200 years until the Americans showed up and said, you're going to trade with us and you're going to like it. Then the Western powers imposed a bunch of unequal treaties, meaning Japan's economy was bust. They also had no natural resources, so they decided to go get some. They went to war with China to gain a sphere of influence over Korea, and they took a bunch of China's stuff. But then the West said, hey, cut that out. And since Japan couldn't take on the West, they said, okay, I guess we'll just go home. Wait a minute, what are you doing? Taking advantage of a weakened China and setting up spheres of influence. But I was the one who weakened them. We know. And you guys didn't let me have anything. We know. That seems unfair. We don't think so. Okay, see ya. So Japan thought, screw this, and went to war with Russia, and stunned everyone by actually winning. Then they fully annexed Korea, but they didn't stop there. In World War I, they took Germany's colonies and islands in Asia. And then in an incident that was maybe staged by the Japanese army, a bomb blew up a Japanese train in Manchuria, giving them an excuse to launch an invasion and take over. So here's the situation. Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and Japan all believe they're racially superior, all feel hostility towards the Allies, and all want to militarize and take over more stuff. And so they did. Let's start with Germany. Hitler hated the Treaty of Versailles, and now he was ready to begin undoing it. In complete violation of the treaty, the first Luftwaffe squadrons were set up, conscription was introduced, and he pimped up his army. The Allies did nothing. Then Hitler sent his army back into the demilitarized Rhineland, giving orders to immediately retreat if the Allies showed up. The Allies did nothing. With his military re-strengthened, he could now move on to step 2. He wanted to rapidly increase the Aryan population, and to do so, he needed Lebensraum. Or in other words, he would have to take over the world. But for now, a good portion of Europe would do, and he began eyeing up his neighbors. The Allies finally started to get worried, so they implemented a fairly useless diplomatic strategy called appeasement, and it went a little something like this. Hitler would say, I want that thing, and the Allies would say, you can't have that thing. Okay, you can have that thing, but no more. I want that thing. And repeat. In 1938, Hitler's army marched into Austria and just took it, with no resistance. Boom, this is Germany now. Next, he demanded to be given the Sudetenland, an area of Czechoslovakia with many...
What do you mean?
Like just the fact that it was that easy and there was no fighting back.
Well, a lot of the Austrians were actually cheered the Germans in, like they were quite happy to be ruled by German.
Well, Hitler was Austrian, wasn't he?
Yeah. Well, this is coming off the back of, the whole Austro-Hungarian thing that we saw a couple of videos ago.
The ethnic Germans. The Allies held a meeting with Hitler in Munich and said, look, we're going to give you what... Hang on. This meeting is about my territory. Shouldn't I come to the meeting too? Anyway, we're going to give you what you want. Really? Yeah. Just like that? Yep. What's the catch? Just sign this piece of paper promising you won't invade the rest of Czechoslovakia. Okay. Then Chamberlain returned home victorious, waving his signed piece of paper in the air, declaring crisis to be averted and the continuation of world peace. And we built a statue of Chamberlain in his honor, and every day on the 30th of September we celebrate Chamberlain Day. Hitler's invading the rest of Czechoslovakia. What? He's invading the rest of Czechoslovakia. Oh. You lied to me. What do you expect? I'm Hitler. Not to be outdone, Mussolini also wanted to get in on the action. He thought to himself, isn't there a not yet colonized nation somewhere which is so underdeveloped that the people would be defending themselves against our tanks with literal bows and arrows and wooden spears? Oh, there is? Fantastic. And so he took it. Italy also wanted to control the entrance to the Adriatic Sea, so they occupied Albania. Then, in another incident which was maybe staged by the Japanese, gunfire was exchanged by Japanese and Chinese troops at the Marco Polo Bridge, and the Japanese launched yet another invasion against China. They swept through Beijing and Shanghai, and then advanced through the Yangtze Valley to China's then capital, Nanking. It was here that saw the...
Sorry, I'll pull it back because that's important. It's mad to think, like, when you think of China today,
yeah,
you think, like, no one fucks with China, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it's mad that Japan just kind of rolled through a bit of Russia, rolled through China, took all the German colonies down south.
But was that not because Japanese like soldiers were like dead hard?
Dead? Yeah, you're hard, you are, mate.
I'm hard. But
they were.
They had no
fear.
There was no fear, and there was no kind of game, not like game plan, but they didn't care if they go home or not.
I think it's just how well organised they were, and they had a lot of military experience from World War One.
I just feel like they were all on a suicide mission.
Yeah.
So you're gonna be scared to be up against someone who isn't scared of you or dying or anything. Yeah,
if you was fighting an enemy that wasn't afraid to die, that would instill a level of fear in you.
Even worth it.
Yeah, even when the British troops came back from fighting Al Qaeda, like in the Taliban, and they said like they just don't give a shit, like
mental.
Yeah, they just blow themselves up. They don't care.
Shanghai, and then advanced through the Yangtze Valley to China's then capital, Nanking. It was here that saw the worst of Japan's shocking atrocities committed against the Chinese people. Back in Europe, Germany and Italy made their relationship status official by signing the Pact of Steel. Then, Hitler turned his eyes towards Poland and the hated Polish corridor splitting Germany in two. At this point, the Allies really had to put their foot down, and they warned him that an invasion of Poland would mean war. Hitler had planned to continue his advance eastward, but he didn't want to end up fighting a war on two fronts. So for now, he made an alliance with Stalin, saying, "How about we both invade Poland and split it between the two of us, and I definitely won't not refrain from not betraying you sometime in the future." Sounds good. This new alliance stunned the West. On the 1st of September 1939, German troops entered Poland, and Britain and France declared war on Germany. The Poles fought hard, but they were no match for the two giants crashing down on them from either side. Then came a period known as the Phony War, where everyone just sort of sat around not doing much. The French had launched a small invasion into the Saarland, but they maintained mostly defensive positions. And
I don't know, like this. I know the audience is like mostly American that watch our videos, but like during the Phony War, we actually spend quite a bit of time on that, and it was just like every day, school teachers and school children would do like gas attack, like simulations.
Just practice, wouldn't they?
Yeah, like on every child's hook where they put their coat and their book bag for school, there would be a gas mask. And every day they would practice gas mask drills.
Doing drills and all that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and a lot of them, like they always say, when the war kicked off, they were then sent to the countryside. Some children were already been sent to the countryside in some cases. And that's where the whole what's that film? Uncle Tom?
Which film?
Where the kid gets sent away to live with the old man. And
I was thinking about Nanny McPhee. So obviously not that film.
No,
they do get sent to the countryside.
Yeah, they do.
From either side. Then came a period known as the Phony War, where everyone just sort of sat around not doing much. The French had launched a small invasion into the Saarland, but they maintained mostly defensive positions, and after a while decided to just turn around and call it a day. Speaking of France, the French were still super proud of their victory in World War I, and they hadn't really moved on from it. They still used horses, they dispatched messages by motorbike instead of using radio, orders from the commander-in-chief were usually pretty vague, and the troops were rarely inspected. They built a line of defenses along their German border, but didn't bother extending it all the way to the Channel, and they wouldn't launch artillery strikes against Germany out of fear of being retaliated against.
It's good night, Mr. Tom.
Good night, Mr. Tom, that's it.
And the troops were rarely inspected. They built a line of defenses along their German border, but didn't bother extending it all the way to the Channel, and they wouldn't launch artillery strikes against Germany out of fear of being retaliated against. In a war, they didn't want to attack the enemy. And at first the UK wasn't much better. Chamberlain still naively hoped that the war could be ended diplomatically. Instead of bombing raids, the RAF dropped propaganda leaflets over German cities, which one air marshal said likely did nothing but provide the continent with toilet paper for the duration of the war. They also only sent 200,000 men to France, while the French had mobilized millions. Both Britain and France wanted to avoid a repeat of the First World War, and so they wanted to keep the war as far from home as possible. So they turned their eyes north, towards Norway. Neutral Sweden was exporting iron ore to Germany through neutral Norway, so the Allies asked them if they could please stop exporting iron ore to Germany, but this request was refused. Then, the Soviet Union attacked Finland, so the Allies said, How about we land troops in Norway and move them across Sweden to go help out your good pal Finland, and along the way maybe take control of all your amphibians? But Norway and Sweden still said no. So the UK mined the waters around Norway to force any transport ships into international waters, and they also attacked a German tanker they found in the area. Hitler realized what the Allies were up to, and he quickly moved to secure his supply of iron ore. He launched an invasion through Denmark into Norway. The Allies rushed to land troops at key ports along the coast, but Germany had taken control of Norway's airfield, and their air superiority decided the fight. The Allies had to retreat. After this slightly embarrassing failure, Chamberlain resigned and was replaced with Winston Churchill, who had a slightly different approach to dealing with the Germans. Hitler's overall strategy was similar to Germany's First World War strategy. Attack France, defeat France, knocking out the UK in the process, then turn on the Soviet Union and win the war. During the phony war, the Allies had given Hitler time to prepare his forces. Now, he was ready to attack. The Allies had wanted to place troops in Belgium, but Belgium had refused, and in a move that surprised pretty much no one, Hitler launched an invasion to get around France's defenses. The Allies charged into Belgium at full speed to meet the German invasion head-on, and it looked like a repeat of the First World War was coming. But this time, Hitler had a trick up his sleeve. Blitzkrieg. As the Germans advanced, they sent thousands of refugees westward, slowing down the Allies. Then, to the south, the French had left the Ardennes, an area full of hills and forests, pretty underdefended because they thought it was naturally impenetrable. Well, the Germans were about to penetrate it with everything they had. They smashed 50 Wehrmacht divisions through and encircled the Allied armies at lightning speed. The best of the Allied forces were now trapped. The Germans squeezed in from all sides, taking out France's best armies and nearly wiping out the British too. But they managed to make a desperate last-minute escape at Dunkirk, with British civilian ships even making the perilous journey to bring their young men home. With most of the French forces depleted, the Germans breezed through, taking Paris, and France fell. What the Germans couldn't do in World War I, Hitler had done just like that. Hitler hoped that with the fall of France, the UK would also lose hope and sue for peace. But quite annoyingly, it didn't, and he needed to secure the Western Front, so he tried to force them into submission with mind games. The UK were now all alone, and Hitler wanted to emphasize that. First of all, just before France fell, Italy finally declared war on the Allies, making the UK's situation even worse. Next, instead of just occupying all of France, Hitler occupied the coastal areas for defense, but allowed France to continue its existence as a German puppet state. This way, it looked like the UK's old ally had decided to switch sides. Hitler also hoped that the UK wouldn't attack any of her old allies' navy bases or colonies in Africa, giving Hitler an extra line of defense to the south. But the UK made sure to respond to this by sailing down to France's navy base in Algeria and wrecking a bunch of ships. So have at it. Hitler then began laying down plans for an invasion of Great Britain before German troops could...
Look at that map.
So have at it.
Us, not us. This way.
Wrong way.
Brilliant. I can just imagine Goebbels and all the people in the office looking at this map going, yep, sounds good.
Hitler then began laying down plans for an invasion of Great Britain before Germany...
Sorry, to think when you were obviously saying about the whole thing at Dunkirk, because that was obviously huge. It's mad how close they actually was to get into Britain.
Oh, I know, yeah. Like, if they would have pushed on, imagine how many more troops they could have killed. Like, and just slaughtered all the troops at Dunkirk.
I know. There's actually, I don't know what it's called, but there's a programme, I think it's a British, like a drama, but it's like if Hitler had won, and it's like what England would be like and stuff. But I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I've done a video on it. I think just before we moved to this place. It's pretty interesting, but...
I only seen it because they were watching it on Gogglebox.
It's pretty much impossible that the Nazis ever would have won. Hitler ever would have won, but...
But the UK made sure to respond to this by sailing down to France's navy base in Algeria and wrecking a bunch of ships. So have at it. Hitler then began laying down plans for an invasion of Great Britain before German troops could land on British soil. He would first need air and naval superiority across the Channel. Waves of German bombers came, while the completely outnumbered RAF worked bravely around the clock in an attempt to quell the German attacks. At first, the Luftwaffe targeted British ports and coastal facilities. Then it attacked RAF bases, crippling the RAF's ability to defend the nation. And it looked like Hitler's Great British invasion was coming. But then, Churchill ordered a small, pretty insignificant bombing raid over Berlin. It didn't do much damage, but Hitler was furious, and he immediately...
Did you see that? I don't think I've
pretty
ever
insignificant
noticed.
Bombing raid over Berlin. It didn't do much damage, but Hitler was furious.
Look how he spelled fury.
And he immediately ordered the Luftwaffe to refocus its attacks on civilian targets in London. Children were sent off to the countryside away from their parents to avoid danger, and frequent trips to air raid shelters became a daily occurrence. But British morale held firm. Smiling, knitting, lounging casually, these people have balls of steel.
It's worth. There's still so many like old just bunkers lying around still in like parks, and you just go in them. There's so much stuff from World War II that they just never really cleared up.
Yeah, I remember going for near my mum, where my mum lives. We went for like these big walks out in the fields. You know, there's a farm and loads of fields.
Yeah.
And if you just keep going, there's actually like it's just in the grass, like a doorway.
Yeah.
You can go in. There's still like bunk beds. I mean, it's trashed obviously from like people going in it, but it's mad.
Yeah, where I lived in Birmingham, there was 2 minutes down the road. There was a place called Spitfire Island where there's a big Fort Dunlop factory, and that's where they used to make all the Spitfire planes in World War II. And about 3 weeks ago, it was all closed off because in a park local to it, there's an undetonated bomb from the German Luftwaffe, and they just found it, and they just like had to do one of them little controlled explosions. But it's just mad, like how
there's just still stuff randomly about.
Yeah.
Focusing on London also gave the RAF breathing space to reorganize, so Hitler kind of shot himself in the foot there. Just the foot for now. Finally, the Luftwaffe sent one massive all-out attack on London, and the RAF successfully repelled it, destroying many of the German aircraft and placing air superiority firmly in British hands. Hitler's invasion had to be postponed, but the bombing of British cities continued for some time.
Just looking there, did Ireland just not get involved?
If I'm completely honest, I don't know what Ireland's involvement was in World War II.
Just because they weren't blue. Northern Ireland was.
Oh, well, that's just because they're not a part of the UK.
Oh, right.
That's actually a good question. Just go.
Check me out asking good questions.
Was Ireland...
Why are you so angry typing in capitals?
Oh, I didn't even know.
Why are you shouting?
What are you shouting for?
Neutral.
Remain neutral. However, tens of thousands of Irish citizens who were by law British subjects fought in the Allied armies. Okay, so rate them soldiers.
Yeah.
To be fair, you can see why the Irish wouldn't help us. The Irish hate us. We haven't even really done anything, but they just hate. No, I'm joking.
You're right.
Everyone hates Britain, and everyone kind of has good reason to. But they won't stop my patriotism. Fuck them then. Don't be our friend. Fuck the lot of yous. No, that was a great video. It was. The whole time I was watching it, I was just appreciating how well he kind of executes
he just explains everything so well,
and he does it with that he knows that he doesn't want to joke too much, so he has to stay on the subject. So just putting in these little niche Easter eggs, if you want.
The spelling, all the other little things.
He's so good how he does it. He deserves everything he gets, doesn't he? I mean, 4.6 million.
4.65 million.
Yeah, but he deserves it.
Yeah, definitely.
He fully deserves it, man.
No, I enjoyed that, and I get it now, because that was more of a collective of things that happened that started World War II, which I get.
Yeah, I was watching. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. I was watching other people's reaction channels the other day, some bigger ones than mine. And as there was that woman got her tits out in the window.
Where? What's she doing?
Bro, she's got her tits out.
I ain't got my glasses on.
Get your glasses on.
She has. She just put a bra on.
This is what we deal with. Damn, I was gonna have a good look at it. I'm joking. But I was watching. Please, I was joking. Sex tonight. I was watching.
Are you gonna look out the window the whole time?
Yeah. I was watching some other reaction channels, and they don't pause as much as we do. They'll just watch the video and then be like,
Yeah.
So if you guys would prefer it if we just watched the video and then just had a little chat afterwards, we could do that. Or if you want us to carry on just doing it the way we do, let us know. But
yeah, I think the thing is though, sometimes I'll think of something that I want to ask. And then by the time it's gotten to the end of the video, I've forgotten my questions.
Well, yeah.
Or forgotten my...
Yeah, let us know what you guys prefer. Obviously, it's what you guys want. But, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Should we do this part 2 tomorrow?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Part 2 tomorrow, then that'll be out tomorrow. Peace out, guys, and take it easy.